Nitish Kumar took oath as Bihar Chief Minister a day after breaking JDU's alliance with the BJP and joining hands with the RJD's Tejashwi Yadav took oath as his deputy.
And right after that swearing-in ceremony, Nitish Kumar took a swipe at the Prime Minister, asking he won in 2014, but will he win in 2024? The BJP has hit out strongly at him, calling him an opportunist. But the new Mahagathbandhan is now firmly in place. The question is, will it be different this time around, Gargi?
That's right. Well, let's go across to Alok Pandey now. For more, Alok, this morning you have Tejashwi Yadav tweeting, asking his supporters that, don't celebrate. It's not time for celebration, but time to get down to work. He also had a Twitter interaction with the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Stalin.
Well, he did, and he also had Twitter interactions with a few other leaders. I think the spotlight at the moment is also very firmly on Tejashwi Yadav, Gati and Divya. Because Nitish Kumar, you see, for him, it's his eighth time as Chief Minister. And beyond the flip-flops, political flip-flops that he has done, his value or his track record as an administrator is not something new. It's been in the public domain for many, many years now, and people have divided opinion on how he has performed. With Tejashwi Yadav, the bar is set a little higher because he's young. He has been the Deputy Chief Minister of the state once for 2 years in a failed experiment of an alliance with Nitish Kumar earlier. This time around also, there will be a lot of spotlight on him and how he now manages the RJD cadre across the state and also the ministers from the RJD quota. See, the last time around, there were two crucial differences. Number one, the JDU and the RJD fought in an alliance and won an election and then came to power. This time, it's an opposite alliance, so to say. I mean, the sense of the politics around it. Also, just give me 10 more seconds.
Yes, go
The
ahead.
other thing is that last time, Lalu Yadav was a very active was in a very active role, so to say, at that point of time. He was the one who was kind of calling the shots, but of course, Tejashwi became the Deputy Chief Minister. This time, Lalu is not in the best of health, and Tejashwi Yadav is literally now the in charge of that party, so to say. So, the spotlight, the focus, the gaze is on him to perform. And the challenge is about that because, you see, yesterday I was doing the show from Patna, and while this was an urban audience, a lot of the people said that, they were wary of the RJD. And that's the perception that he wants to change, otherwise he will tweet what he tweeted. So, one waits to see how this works out on the ground.
Right, Alok, and also talking of Nitish Kumar, and how a lot is being made, and all the political analysts talking about what Nitish's impact will be on the national scenario and etc. And 2024, Nitish Kumar, the first thing he said after swearing in was that he's not in the running for PM, but then he does go on to challenge the Prime Minister, saying that, will we see the same thing happening in 2014, in 2024?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. Nitish Kumar yesterday said that, look, when he was asked, are you in the race for the Prime Minister's post? And he said, no, I'm not. But will the person who became Prime Minister in 2014 manage to repeat it again in 2024? But then again, you see, the thing is with politicians that, they say one thing one day and they may say the other thing the other day.
Sure.
Especially if you look at what's happening in Bihar. So in that context, never say never. So there may be a chance that Nitish Kumar manages to pitch for the Prime Minister. It depends on a lot of factors, including his own track record and how he performs in the next 2 years in this government with the RJD. So things in that sense in a flux, but yes, a sharp attack from him on the Prime Minister.
Alok, a sharp attack back by the BJP, calling him an opportunist, and also going on to say that he actually wanted to be the vice president candidate.
Well, lots of allegations and counter-allegations, but yes, the BJP says that he wanted to be the vice presidential candidate. When that didn't happen, then he chose to break off the alliance. As we saw yesterday, the BJP also held dharnas across Bihar and in Patna, and the top leadership came out all guns blazing, so to say, launching political attacks on Nitish and the JDU and the RJD. So you can expect that to happen a little more. I think there will be a slight lull now, given that the Shakti Pradarshan or the voter or the vote of confidence for Nitish Kumar, yes, I think that may be a decent term to use, is going to happen on the 24th of August. But I think, this is not the last we've seen of her or heard from the BJP leaders. I'm sure they're going to be all out politically attacking this combination.
All right, thanks so much, Alok, for joining us. With that, well, let's take a look at this report.
A hug and a smile to seal Bihar's dramatic power shift. Nitish Kumar ditching the BJP to become CM for a record 8th time. By embracing ally turned rival turned ally, the RJD's Tejasvi Yadav, who will be his deputy. Only the big two took oath at Patna's Raj Bhavan, an indication of the hurry with which the alliance was put together and the challenges ahead of power sharing. Right afterwards, Mr. Kumar ruled himself out as a contender for the 2024 Lok Sabha election while launching a political attack on the Prime Minister, asking whether Mr. Modi will get a third term.
नहीं हम किसी चीज के उम्मीदवार का हम कोई दावेदारी नहीं, लेकिन इतना तो जरूर कर दीजिए ना कि 14 में जो आए 24 तक के आगे रह पाएंगे कि नहीं रह पाएंगे वो अपना सवाल।
भाजपा के लोगों ने कहा कि सरकार बिहार की नहीं चलेगी और मुख्यमंत्री जी ने जो पलट में जो वार किया है वो मुख्यमंत्री जी ने कहा कि 24 में ही सरकार गिर जाएगी, दोबारा आने वाले लोग नहीं हैं।
He also claimed his alliance with the BJP in 2020 damaged his party.
हम तो उस चुनाव के बाद नहीं बनना चाहते थे मुख्यमंत्री, लेकिन मुझ पर पूरा चारों तरफ से करके दबाव कि नहीं आप संभालिए, हम कर लिए। लेकिन बाद के दिनों में जो कुछ भी हो रहा था आप देख रहे थे ना, और पिछले 1.5-2 महीने से हम किससे बात कर रहे हैं आप लोगों से। हम लोगों का 15 में कितना सीट जीते थे, आज जब इन्हीं लोगों के साथ चले गए तो क्या हुआ है।
The BJP, subdued yesterday, today went on the offensive, holding dharnas across Bihar. A top BJP leader, once considered close to Nitish, claimed the Bihar Chief Minister ditched the BJP because he wanted to be Vice President.
They approached our ministers, senior ministers in Bihar, and they asked that if it is possible, please make some effort so that Nitish Kumar could become Vice President of India. And only 2 days back, Sri Amit Shah made a telephone call to Nitish Kumar. तो सीएम ने कहा कि नहरे में कुछ नहीं, सब ठीक ठाक है, चिंता मत करो।
In 2015, the Nitish Tejasvi alliance collapsed in 2 years. Will it be different is the big question. A large number of supporters of both the Janata Dal United and the Rashtriya Janata Dal turned up today for Nitish Kumar and Tejasvi Yadav's oath-taking ceremony. Most of them expressed the confidence that their coalition this time will be more permanent and will also get political advantage in the next few years. Now, whether that happens or not, whether this alliance stands the test of time or not, remains to be seen. With Manish Kumar and Habib Ali, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
Now, the numbers show that Nitish Kumar's image is not Teflon coated. That's what election strategist Prashant Kishore has told NDTV, taking a dig at the Chief Minister of Bihar.
ये जो गवर्नेंस की बात है सर, आई थिंक ये दूसरी बार एक्सपेरिमेंट हो रहा है। 2015 से 17 भी हुआ
नहीं, 2015 और 17 जो 2015 का जो महागठबंधन था और आज का जो महागठबंधन है, इससे जमीन आसमान का फर्क है। 2015 जनता से चुनकर आया हुआ महागठबंधन था और ये जनता से चुने जाने के बाद के आफ्टर थॉट के बाद का एक पॉलिटिकल अरेंजमेंट है। दोनों में जमीन आसमान का फर्क है।
बिल्कुल।
इन 2010 उनके पास 117 विधायक थे। 2015 में जिसमें फिर वो महागठबंधन में जीत कर आए, उनके पास 72 विधायक थे। 2020 जिसमें फिर वो जीत कर आए, उनके पास 43 विधायक हैं। तो ये जर्नी जो है ये आपको क्लियर दिखा रही है। जो लोग टीवी पे बैठ के ये एनालाइज कर रहे हैं और इस तरह की कमेंट्री करते हैं, असेसमेंट करते हैं कि इस इमेजरी सच टेफलन कोटेड कि कुछ भी कर लें उसका कोई इलेक्ट्रल इम्पैक्ट नहीं होगा, ऐसी बात नहीं है। कम से कम आंकड़े वो नहीं बताते हैं। ये अलग बात है कि वो नंबर कम होने के बावजूद जो फॉर्मेशंस हैं, ही इज एबल टू मेक अ फॉर्मेशन वेयर ही इज द लीडर।
All right, moving on now away from Bihar and on to other news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hit out at the Congress for wearing black clothes on the 5th of August in a protest against price rise.
Right, Gargi, saying that those who believe in black magic will never be able to win the trust of people again.
अभी हमने 5 अगस्त को देखा है कि कैसे काले जादू का काले जादू को फैलाने का भरपूर प्रयास किया गया। ये लोग सोचते हैं कि काले कपड़े पहनकर उनकी निराशा हताशा का काल समाप्त हो जाएगा, लेकिन उन्हें पता नहीं है कि वो कितनी ही झाड़ फूंक कर ले, कितना ही काला जादू कर ले, अंधविश्वास कर ले, जनता का विश्वास अब उन पर दोबारा कभी नहीं बन पाएगा।
All right, so that was the Prime Minister's statement linking black clothes and black magic. But the Congress hit back with this picture. Congress General Secretary Jairam Ramesh shared this picture of the Prime Minister in black clothes.
And said that he's making a pointless issue about black clothes.
Now, the other big story today, Jagdeep Dhankhar will take oath of office as the 14th Vice President of the country. President Draupadi Murmu will be administering that oath at 12:30 p.m.
The Vice President is also the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Mr. Dhankhar had received 528 votes as the NDA candidate, defeating the opposition's Margaret Alva, who got 182 votes in the vice presidential election.
Well, news now from Jammu and Kashmir, and the possibility of assembly polls in Jammu and Kashmir this year looks bleak as the Election Commission of India has extended the deadline for revision of the electoral rolls.
The deadline has been extended from October to the 25th of November, close to the onset of winter when holding elections becomes difficult in Kashmir Kargi.
That's right, and the Union Territory has been without an elected government since June 2018 when the BJP dumped the PDP, leading to the collapse of Mehbooba Mufti's government.
No assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir this year. The Election Commission's decision to revise and extend the date of publishing final electoral rolls to the last week of November has further delayed chances of holding elections in Jammu and Kashmir after it was stripped of its statehood and special status. The erstwhile state is without an elected government since June 2018. Regional parties say there is a consistent effort over the last 4 years to deny people the right to elect their own government.
We are now in the 5th year when J&K will not have an elected representative, an elected chief minister at place. It's unfortunate that the process that was set in place some months back has again been curtailed.
As far as the democracy is concerned, it continues to be in suspended animation in Jammu and Kashmir. Elections are one of the tools of restoring democracy, and even that tool has not been restored in Jammu and Kashmir.
The revision of electoral rolls was announced in June following the completion of a controversial delimitation exercise to redraw assembly seats in Jammu and Kashmir. The final electoral rolls were supposed to be completed by October, giving hopes of holding assembly elections. The BJP says it's ready for the polls, but it is the prerogative of the Election Commission of India to hold elections.
Announcing the dates for the election is the exclusive prerogative of the Election Commission of India. This is the constitutional scheme of things in India. As and when Election Commission of India announces, Bharatiya Janata Party is ready, and we are ready. Even elections are announced tomorrow.
Jammu and Kashmir is under second longest period of centre rule. Since June 2018, there is no elected government in the region. After ECI decision to revise the schedule for revision of electoral rolls, the wait for restoration of democracy is only getting longer. In Srinagar, Nazir Masoodi for NDTV.
Welcome back. But now a controversy after a UP constable in Firozabad complained about bad food. He broke down on camera. That's what the viral videos show, and he was sobbing over the poor quality of food that was given to them. There you can see that video. Let's just listen to it.
पुलिस के सभी कर्मचारियों को पौष्टिक आहार के लिए भत्ता देते हैं। उन्होंने शायद 30% पौष्टिक आहार भत्ता बढ़ाया था। आप बताइए, आप यही पौष्टिक आहार मिल रहा है? आप लोग और मुख्यमंत्री जी चाहते हैं कि पुलिस पर अच्छा कार्य करे। जब पेट में रोटी नहीं जाएगी तो हम कहाँ से चल पाएंगे? आप ये तो देख लीजिए। अरे तू चल चौकी बता, चल चौकी में बैठा गुरु मुझसे हम तो नहीं है, नहीं नहीं गुरुदेव पीछे इस विभाग में देखिए कोई सुनने वाला नहीं, सब दबाव बनाने वाले हैं।
अरे दबाव ना बनाना भाई, चल
कोई नहीं है, सब गुरु बेकार है सब। चाहते हैं आप लोग हमसे कि अच्छा कार्य करें, आप बताइए इसको कहा करके हम बढ़ेंगे, अभी अच्छा कार्य करेंगे।
Gosh, it's quite a sight to see a cop breaking down and crying like that, Divya.
Absolutely, over rotis saying those are not even fit for dogs, Gargi. To get more on this, we have my colleague Alok joining us on the phone line. Alok, we just saw this police constable breaking down at the police station. He's been saying that he informed officials about the state of the food in that mess, the police mess there, but going on to say that no one listens, and he finally had to, in fact, break down and talk about how the rotis are not even fit for dogs.
Well, I think this story highlights many aspects, including, the living and working conditions of those who work at the lowest hierarchies of the police force. Now, this is a constable, and most of these constables, especially those who are not from the same district, they live in these police lines. Those are sprawling campuses, as we all know. But sometimes the quality of life and the quality of food that is being served does come under the scanner. Now, in this case, this constable, his video has gone viral. And like you said, and like you can hear in that viral video, he is saying that the food that is being given to the constables is not even fit for animals. That even animals and dogs can't eat the food. If you throw a roti to a dog, he will also not eat it. So I think it's something that needs to be investigated. Now, the police are saying they have their own version. And by the police, I mean the official police handle of the Firozabad police. They are saying that the constable's complaint is being investigated, but also that he has a history of disciplinary issues and he's been, cautioned, warned multiple times in the past. So that's also something that they have put out. So one waits to see what the outcome of that inquiry is. But at the same time, one also hopes that, those who work such punishing hours, especially in the police force, everyone does, but, the lowest hierarchies of the police force, they really have a very tough job. So one hopes that their living conditions can be bettered and, action will be taken by the local police force also.
Right, and not just action against this poor constable, but genuine action to improve the situation. Because Alok, already in the video, you can see one senior officer or a senior, ranking policeman there, trying to kind of shut him down or saying something to him. And then he goes on to say, but no, you're putting pressure on me already, and this is what happens every time.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right, which is why a fair and transparent inquiry is something that one hopes will happen. Whether it will or not, I think, remains to be seen, but one has to give the police some time to investigate, and one waits to see what the outcome is.
All right, thanks so much for that, Alok. Let's move on to news coming in from Jammu and Kashmir of a terrorist attack, and tragic news also coming in that 3 soldiers have been killed, 2 injured in this attack on an army camp.
Right, Gargi, terrorists barged into this army camp in Rajouri. 2 terrorists were killed in the encounter. This is the first major attack in Jammu and Kashmir in a very long time, Gargi. So
right, and coming just ahead of Independence Day, let's go across to Nazir for more on this. Nazir, what are the details?
Well, at around 3 a.m., 2 attackers, they barged into an army camp in Darhal area of Rajouri district, which is considered largely free from militancy, and they resorted to heavy firing inside the camp. Army repulsed the attack, and in the encounter, 5 soldiers were injured, and 3 of them have died due to their injuries, and 2 are injured. And both the attackers, Fedine attackers, have been killed according to army. The encounter is over, but the operation is still underway. Police, I spoke to a senior police officer. He said it is after a long time. They are witnessing such a major attack, which clearly shows the intentions from across the border. They are pushing the suicide attackers like the Fedine attackers. There are 2 ahead of Independence Day. Amarnath Yatra has ended just today, and there was a lot of concern about the safety of that as well. But fortunately, that went off peacefully. But in this area, which has been considered free from largely, except the infiltration, this is the major Fedine attack. on an army camp in the area. At around 3 a.m., two heavily armed gunmen, they barged inside the camp. They resorted to heavy firing. Army repulsed the attack, and according to army, the troops were alert as they sneaked inside the camp. The attack was repulsed, and in the encounter, both the militants have been killed.
Understand, because I imagine that more details are awaited at this point. But did they manage to really get into the camp, or is this more on the peripheries or near wherever the boundary of the camp is? Were they challenged exactly? Do we know these details right now?
Well, this is not any major, army installation. It is like a company of army camp, like a company in Darhal area, where they have breached the perimeter, and then there was a heavy firing, and in the ensuing encounter, both the attackers, intruders, they were killed, and but army suffered casualties. 3 soldiers have died. They lost their lives in action, and 2 have been injured. But this is the worry. It's after a long time, particularly since the ceasefire between India and Pakistan along the line of control in February last year. And since then, there was no major any incident of firing or the ceasefire violation or any major big infiltration attempt as well. In fact, according to sources, one of the important understanding between the two sides, between India and Pakistan army, was that there would not be any major escalation, major attack on the security forces. But there have been attempts in the past, but this is the most deadly attack on army, particularly in the area which is considered free from militancy. And the bigger challenge for the security force has been Jammu area, which was free from militancy. Militancy is spreading here. We have seen several incidents here. We have seen recently, several people who were, considered to be protected, considered to be, on the side of the mainstream. They were found to be the Lashkar operators, and according to senior, police officer, the attackers are from Lashkar-e-Taiba, and they say Lashkar is behind this attack.
All right, and Nazir, we'd also imagine that security would be on high alert right now. You said that this is not an area that has seen such kind of trouble, but one would imagine it would be on high alert ahead of 15th August. And also just yesterday, those reports of an IED discovered with over 20 kilos of it. And then this taking place today.
Yeah, exactly. It is clearly, an attempt to escalate the situation. And clearly, because Fedine attacks, they are like suicide attackers, they were attacking the security force installation. It was since 1999 it started during the Kargil war. Then it went on for several years. But for the last few years, they were completely stopped. There was no such attack. But now we see such an attack happening after a long time. It's really a worry for the security forces. Though the army has largely made its installations impregnable, their boundary walls with all the security arrangements, with watchtowers, and all the equipment in place to prevent any such incident. Yet we see in a isolated security forces camp in this area where they have breached the perimeter, and then they resorted to heavy firing. So it is actually when someone is ready to die, it's not easy to prevent or stop him. So in this case, when these suicide attackers or the Fedine attackers, they knew they had to die, so they tried to breach, sneak inside the army, here. And in the ensuing encounter, 3 soldiers have lost their lives in action, 2 have been injured, but both the attackers have been killed in this encounter.
Right, Nazir, we can see a lot of checking happening there. Has security been beefed up in the area, considering in the run-up to Independence Day? And this is the second incident that's coming to light. Yesterday, like Gargi was mentioning, 25 to 30 kgs of IED was recovered. And then, of course, when the police were going on to say a major tragedy had been averted. But then today we have this major tragedy that struck in Rajouri.
Well, if we see the security is always on high alert in Jammu. There's maximum number whatever is possible that has been deployed in this area. But the problem is that the enemies are sometimes unknown, sometimes unseen,
and the other neighboring country, they are always planning to cause trouble, and they push the militants from there, and then they had stopped actually sending these Fedine suicide attackers. But this attack is a worrying thing that they have pushed. Whether it is also to be ascertained whether this is a newly infiltrated group who has carried out this attack, or they were operating in the area. In fact, for the last 2 days, we were hearing that there was some suspicious movement in the same area. And in this pre-dawn attack, they carried out this suicide attack on the army. Normally what we see, the security force were they were launching the operations, anti-militancy operations across Jammu and Kashmir and neutralizing militants, killing militants. And there was really a very rare incident when there was such an attack on the army. Yes, during the encounter, security force sacrificed, they lost their lives, people died in action. But the fact is, this attack is after a long time, which clearly shows the intentions from across the border as well. And that too in an area which has been largely free from militancy. And Jammu has remained, at least this year, a major concern of the security for the government, because there have been series of incidents.
All right, Nazir, thanks so much for joining us with that. So tragic news coming in there from Jammu and Kashmir. 3 soldiers killed in action after two terrorists barged into this army camp in Rajouri, and this was the Darhal camp in Rajouri. Both the terrorists were killed in the encounter. 2 other soldiers were also injured, and this attack, as we said, occurred at an army camp in Darhal in Rajouri. 3 soldiers were killed.
Moving on, a case of assault and molestation was registered after security guards or bouncers beat up a group of men and women outside a nightclub in Gurgaon. Gargi, this is the NCR region.
That's right, and take a look at those visuals and you can see the bouncers really beating up that person. So the video clips of this incident from Sunday night have gone viral. They show the men being dragged, punched by the bouncers, who also push a woman who's trying to shield one of the men, and now action has been taken. 6 bouncers and the manager have been arrested after a complaint was registered. The club, the Casa Danza Club, has also issued a statement condemning the violence but denied molestation allegations. The woman claimed that she was also molested by the bouncers. This has been denied by the club.
And let's get your COVID update. Delhi in the last 24 hours has reported 8 deaths due to COVID-19. But what's really worrying is the positivity rate. And let's take into account in the last 24 hours, 2,146 new cases of COVID-19 have been reported.
And the positivity rate is nearly 18%. It's at 17.83% according to the data that has been shared. Now, it was on January 21st that the positivity rate had been 18.04%. And as we said, the fresh cases came out on after 12,036 COVID tests were conducted. Now, remember, a high positivity rate means there's more COVID among the population and there should be more testing. Ideally, the positivity rate should be below 5%.
And now we're giving a very short break. Gargi, what's coming up next?
On the other side, we'll tell you what the G7 has to say about Russia's occupation of a nuclear power plant.
Welcome back. Let's get you some international news. The group of 7 industrialized nations condemned Russia's occupation of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and called on Moscow to immediately hand back full control of the plant to Ukraine. Ukrainian staff operating the plant must be able to carry out their duties without threats or pressure. It is Russia's continued control of the plant that endangers the region, is what the G7 foreign ministers said in a statement. Now it's flag over food in Haryana's Karnal, video that's gone completely viral of ration card holders that are being forced to buy the national flag or denied a share of grains. This is people that are being forced to pay 20 rupees and buy the national flag when they went to collect ration in Haryana.
Flag over food. That's the message that people in this neighborhood of Haryana's district got from their local ration shop. Several below poverty line families like Santro, a widow in Hemda village, say they were forced to buy the tricolour only after which they got their government ration, which is legally theirs.
राशन लेने गई थी जी, राशन तो दे देता हूँ ना, नहीं बोले भाई उसका झंडा लिया मिलेगा, मैं पीछे नहीं जी मेरे पास, नहीं फिर राशन पहला पैसे लिया फिर मिलेगा राशन, आधार कार्ड दरबार थे मैं राशन कार्ड, फिर मैंने दूसरी से लिया 20 रुपये फिर दिया जी ने।
कितने रुपए का झंडा लगाते हो?
20 रुपए का।
The person in charge of the ration shops says he was only following a government order on the Har Ghar Tiranga program.
ये तो ऊपर सरकार करेगी जो करेगी, हम तो कुछ जो हमारे पास देश होगा हम तो करनी है।
लगता है गलत है लेकिन
सरकार पैसे खा रही है इसका। वो तो सरकार की मर्जी है, आपने भी पता ही चीज जो हमारे पास देश होगा हम तो वो करेंगे।
The BJP state government in Haryana faced a backlash after a BJP MP, Varun Gandhi, posted this local news report showing a person who said his rations worth 20 rupees had been held back as payment for a flag.
कुछ राशन प्राप्तकर्ताओं को जबरदस्ती यह तिरंगा बेचा जा रहा था, जिसके खिलाफ प्रशासन द्वारा सख्त कार्रवाई अमल में लेके आई गई और डीएफएससी साहब द्वारा उस डिपो धारक के अगेंस्ट में उसका जो पीडीएस शॉप्स का जो लाइसेंस था उसको इमीडिएटली सस्पेंड भी कर दिया गया।
But the villagers blame the senior government official for passing such orders and say that ration shop in charge has been made the scapegoat.
This is not an isolated incident. A similar complaint was received from Faridabad district of Haryana. Forcing people to buy national flag is against the spirit of freedom, the 75th year of which will be celebrated on August 15. In Karnal, with Sunil Ravish, Mohammad Ghazali for NDTV.
And ahead of the Independence Day this year, Har Ghar Tiranga campaign, the BJP has organized a Tiranga rally in the Tapi river of Gujarat. And there you can see those boats in the Tapi river. They sway to the tricolour. In Assam, more than 53 lakh national flags valued at over 16 crore rupees have been sold in Assam so far as the state government gears up for the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign, while 33 lakh tricolours prepared have been sold by the members working under the Assam State Rural Livelihood Mission. Another 20 lakh have been sold through 34,000 fair price shops across the state in a week's time, and Chief Minister of the state has started his reach out where he will be gifting national flags, and NDTV's Ratnadeep Chaudhary brings us this report.
As a part of the Har Ghar Tiranga initiative, here you can see Assam Chief Minister reaching a locality in Guwahati, handing over the national flag to the residents here. This is part of his initiative to reach out to people, to distribute national flag as a part of the state government's initiative to make sure that more people are involved in the Har Ghar Tiranga initiative of the central government, which has been supported by each and every state government. In Assam, the plan is to hoist at least 80 lakh national flags, 80 lakh tirangas, and therefore the focus at this moment is in terms of not only getting those flags made but also reaching out to people. Now, out of those 80 lakh flags, in fact 50 lakh flags would be procured from the Central Textile Ministry. This is what the state government has told us, and the rest 30 lakhs flags would be actually made by the self-help groups in the state. In fact, about 30 lakh flags are already ready in the state, and flags worth over 16 crores have already been sold in the state. You have come today for the Har Ghar Tiranga initiative. What is the state government's plan? What can you say?
As you see that I am trying to meet our senior generation and trying to give them a national flag. But I know it is not possible to visit everyone, but I'll try to visit at least few houses in Guwahati today, tomorrow and day after. Idea is to create a awareness about the program. But in Assam, I am very happy to say that almost 50 lakhs flag has already been procured by the people. So it is going to be a big success here in Assam.
More than 16 crore rupees has been also collected.
It is not about the rupees, but if you see that in a state like Assam, if 50 lakhs people has already procured, and I am sure that this number will increase further, national flag and whole lot of Tiranga Jatra is happening across the state. I think this is a very, very big news for us, particularly looking at the backdrop, looking at the agitation, looking at the insurgency. This kind of euphoria around nationalistic movement, I think it is a big news for Assam, and it will be a historic days from 13th to 15th.
Here you can see the Chief Minister himself has handed over the national flag to the residents in a locality in Guwahati. In Guwahati, Jagdeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
Well, the big breaking news we can bring you right now is the terror attack that has taken place in Jammu and Kashmir, a Fedine attack on an army camp. Reports of 3 soldiers have been killed in this attack. 2 have also been injured as terrorists targeted an army camp. This was in Darhal, in Rajouri, in a relatively peaceful area that hasn't seen so much terrorist trouble till now. The terrorists targeted this army camp. 2 Fedine terrorists entered the camp and were killed in an encounter. This is the first major Fedine attack, which means a suicide attack in Jammu and Kashmir after a long time. Let's go across to Nazir now for more. Nazir, give us the details. What is the army saying and when did this attack take place?
Well, Gargi, at around 3 a.m., 2 heavily armed militants, they tried to barge inside an army camp in Darhal area. They resorted to heavy firing in the ensuing encounter, which continued for more than 2 hours. 3 soldiers were killed in action, 2 others were injured. Both the attackers, Fedine attackers, have been killed in this encounter. This is one of the biggest attacks on security force in the recent times. The first such suicide of the Fedine attack on army after a long, long time. Fedine attacks had started in Jammu and Kashmir in 1999 during the Kargil war. And then they went on for several years, and it took lot of hard work for the security force to prevent such attacks in terms of neutralizing these attackers before they could carry out such attack. Also, reinforcing their security men and also boundaries of the security forces camps. But now I see the security force are equipped with all the gadgetry, modern weaponry. The boundaries of security camps are almost now impregnable. They cannot be breached because that is the way they have done it. But yet we see early in the morning this pre-dawn attack, 2 attackers, which clearly shows it was a suicide attackers. They barged into this army camp, not a major camp, looks like an army company. And then in the ensuing gun battle, 3 soldiers have lost their lives. This has come at a time when security is on high alert. Ahead of Independence Day, during Amarnath Yatra, security was on all-time high alert. Massive security deployment was made across Jammu and Kashmir, particularly along Srinagar-Jammu highway. Unimaginable security arrangements and the number of troops who were deployed. Yet we see such incident which clearly shows intentions from across the border. One of the important conditions of ceasefire between India and Pakistan army in February 2021 was that there will not be any major attack. But there have been several incidents of attacks, but not of this scale where they would push in Fedine attackers and then they would carry out this attack. These attacks don't come just they happen, but they are being actually planned and
somebody masterminds them and directs his recruits to carry out such attacks. So this will have the major repercussions on the security situation, particularly in an area which is largely seen as free from militancy. But over the last 6 months, Jammu areas have seen trouble. There have been several, militants-related incidents, terror incidents in the area. Recently, a former BJP leader, Talib Hussain Shah, a Lashkar operator and the commander there, he was arrested, captured by people and eventually arrested by police. On his behest, large cache of arms and ammunition was recovered, and according to police, he had confessed to the police that during questioning that there is a movement in this particular area. In last 2 days, they were reported that there was a suspicious movement in this Zaral area, and in this pre-dawn attack, the major attack on a army installation after long time in the valley, which is a huge worry. So security is on high alert, particularly ahead of Independence Day in the Kashmir Valley, in Jammu areas. But Jammu remains a big challenge. According to army, both the attackers have been killed, and police told me that this is a Lashkar is behind this attack. That is what clear senior police officer, additional director general of police, Jammu, Mr. Mukesh Singh told me it is a Lashkar attack. So it's a huge worry for the security forces. 3 soldiers have been killed in action. 2 others are injured. They have been evacuated to hospital where they are being treated. So attack on an army camp in Rajouri area, which is in the part of the Jammu, which has been largely, free from militancy. But over the last 6 months, we have seen several incidents, and so militants essentially spreading to even in Jammu areas, which were free from militants. So the big challenge, but at the moment, army says the operation, encounter is over since both the attackers have been killed, but the search operation is still underway.
All right, Nazir, so very, very worrying. And as you pointed out, anyway, there's high security always in Kashmir, but ahead of 15th August, even higher security. And yesterday you had the explosives that were discovered, over 20 kilos of explosives and IED that was also discovered. And that time we were told a major incident had been averted. And now we have this particular incident in which we've lost 2 of our soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. It was like between 25 kilo and 30 kg IED, which was recovered by the police based on a tip-off from Tahab area of Pulwama district. It would have been, if God forbid, if it would have happened, it would have caused, attack. This would have been used for some attack. It would have been like a repeat of, February 2019 attack on security force like that, because the magnitude of the attack, magnitude of this, kind of, IED, 25 kilo IED is not a small thing. How they have been able to assemble it and the kind of explosive they have got, which clearly shows while the security force have been having absolute upper hand in the valley, but militancy actually has gone underground like never before. You don't know who will be the next militant, while they will surface, what their action they are going to take. Yes, the local recruits are being killed way in the frequent encounters in the valley, but the real threats remain there, like the attack today on the army installation. That too, ahead of 15th August, when security is on all-time high alert and in an area which is free from militancy, largely free from militancy. So this area actually has been in a sense, and security force have been telling us most of the infiltration is actually coming from this Pir Panjal area, which is Rajouri and Poonch areas line of control, because after the Galwan incident, large number of troops were moved to that area, and some of them have been shifted from this area as well. So the presence of security army in this area has been lesser than what it used to be in this particular area. So perhaps they may be taking advantage from across the border and pushing more militants instead of North Kashmir, which was largely, mainly the infiltration route for militancy. They are now using the Pir Panjal, which is Poonch Rajouri area. And we have also seen how drones are being used to, smuggle weapons, and large number of drone droppings were made. And the police also recovered large cache of arms and ammunition, which were being, dropped through these drones, particularly in Jammu, Samba, Kutwa areas. So that is also another challenge. So these are multiple challenges, despite the fact that the security forces, as I said, has upper hand. There's a massive deployment, and the deployment since August 2019 is much higher than what it used to be across Jammu and Kashmir. Yet we see There's no end to militancy, and we see after a long pause in these Fedine attacks, we see the first such Fedine attack on an army camp after several years.
All right, Nazir, very tragic news coming in this morning with 3 of our soldiers killed in this Fedine attack. All right, in other news coming in, diplomatic sources have told NDTV that China has stalled a bid by India and the US at the UN Security Council to sanction Pakistan terrorist Abdul Rauf Azhar. Diplomatic sources have said China stopped this bid at the UN Security Council. Azhar is the younger brother of the Jaish-e-Mohammed founder Masood Azhar. Diplomatic sources have said that all 14 other members agreed with this, but only one country, that's China, stood out in placing the hold and coming to the defense of a terrorist. The sanctions would have frozen Rauf Azhar's assets and imposed a travel ban. China, on its part, has said that we placed a hold because we need more time to study the case. China has repeatedly blocked Indian efforts at the UNSC in the past to sanction Pakistani terrorists. And also, Rauf Azhar was said to be involved in the hijacking of the Indian airline IC-814. So China stopping this bid at the UN Security Council to sanction him. Now the latest on Bihar. Nitish Kumar took oath as Bihar Chief Minister a day after breaking the JDU's alliance with the BJP and joining hands with the RJD. RJD's Tejashwi Yadav took oath yesterday as the Deputy Chief Minister for a second time. Right after the swearing-in ceremony, Nitish Kumar took a swipe at Prime Minister Modi, asking that he won in 2014, but will he in 2024? The BJP has hit out strongly at Nitish, calling him an opportunist, but the new Mahagathbandhan is now firmly in place. And the question is, will it be different this time around? Also this morning, Tejashwi Yadav has tweeted thanking Bihar, thanking the people of Bihar. And he says, I pray I live up to the expectations of the people of Bihar. I urge supporters to begin work rather than celebrate and embrace the poor and try and solve their problems honestly. Together, let us make Bihar even better. Well, let's go across to Alok Pandey now for more. And Alok, a lot of, the speculation around the Mahagathbandhan is based on the last time around that Nitish Kumar and the RJD came together and the issues that he had with the sons of Lalu Yadav and, various challenges. And but this time around, so everybody's watching that, and interesting to see Tejashwi Yadav's tweet this morning.
You are right. There's also one more difference between last time and this time around, which is that last time the Mahagathbandhan was in an alliance before the elections, fought the elections, won a majority, Nitish Kumar became Chief Minister and Tejashwi Yadav became his deputy. Another important change from the last time is that Lalu Yadav, the veteran Bihar politician, former Chief Minister, was in a much more active political role within the RJD and more visible political role within the RJD than he is now because of ill health. Now the onus is on Tejashwi Yadav, the 32-year-old Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar, to try and see that, the mistakes or the perceived mistakes of the last time, between 2015 and 17, and one doesn't need to go back 2-3 decades, are not repeated. I mean, there is a perception in the eyes of the public that when it comes to the RJD, it is associated with this Hindi word that we use, arajakta, which may translate to chaos maybe. And that is something that he needs to work on, and he's trying to, because that is why you have these tweets, especially this morning's one, where he asks his karyakartas or workers not to celebrate, but rather to get down on the ground and work, to get on the ground and work. And one waits to see whether this posturing or this advice on social media is actually going to translate on the ground, and that'll be interesting to watch.
All right, Alok, thanks so much for joining us with that. And Omar Abdullah has also tweeted. Remember, many leaders across the country have tweeted and congratulated Tejashwi Yadav. He's responded to some of them, to Stalin as well. And Omar Abdullah tweets, I join my father and party colleagues in congratulating Nitish Kumar and Tejashwi Yadav. I'm sure the people of Bihar will benefit greatly from the resumption of this natural partnership. With that, time for us to slip into a short break. Coming up on the other side, today the 14th Vice President of India will take oath. We'll get to the details.
Hi, good morning. You're watching NDTV 24/7. Let's get you our top story. Reports of 3 soldiers have been killed, 2 have been injured as terrorists target an army base camp in Rajouri. Terrorists targeted this army camp at Darhal. 2 terrorists were killed in the encounter. This is the first major attack in Jammu and Kashmir after a long time ahead of Independence Day. So this major, this is after yesterday, IED was recovered in the Pulwama district. 25 to 30 kgs of IED was recovered, and the police there claiming how they've averted this attack in Pulwama. And then today at about 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 soldiers were killed in an action in Jammu and Kashmir's army camp, while 2 terrorists were shot dead. The terrorists were trying to scale the fence of the camp when an army person spotted them and opened fire, leading to a gunfight. Someone tried to cross the fence of the army camp at Barged, and that's when they tried to challenge, and the exchange of fire took place, is what the Additional Director General of Police, Mukesh Singh, had to say. The Rajouri district and other parts of Jammu and Kashmir have largely been free from terrorism, but over the last 6 months there have been a series of terrorist-related incidents in Jammu, and this one coming just ahead of Independence Day. And moving on in other news, let's get your COVID update in the national capital. In the last 24 hours, 8 COVID-related deaths have been reported, the highest in nearly 180 days, with 2,146 new cases that are being reported. But it's the positivity rate that's now nearly 18% at 17.83%, according to the, on the 21st of January, the positivity rate stood at 18.04%. So after January, we're seeing the positivity rate touching almost 18% all over again. When we talk about that positivity rate, a high percentage means that more people are testing positive for COVID-19, and ideally the positivity rate should be below 5%. Moving on in other news, in Uttar Pradesh's Firozabad district, the police constable has raised questions while crying over the food received in the police mess. He had complaints about how the food was made, but also the supply of water, pulses, and the state of the rotis that were being served, saying that they're not even fit for animals, not even fit for dogs.
पुलिस के सभी कर्मचारियों को पौष्टिक आहार के लिए भत्ता देते हैं। उन्होंने शायद 25% 30% पौष्टिक आहार भत्ता बढ़ाया था। आप बताइए, आप यही पौष्टिक आहार मिल रहा है? आप लोग और मुख्यमंत्री जी चाहते हैं कि पुलिस सबसे अच्छा कार्य करे। जब पेट में रोटी नहीं जाएगी तो हम कहाँ से चल पाएंगे? आप ये तो देख लीजिए। अरे तू चल चौकी बता, चल चौकी बैठवा दे। गुरु मुझसे अब तो नहीं है, नहीं आप नहीं गुरुदेव भाई, पीछे इस विभाग में देखिए कोई सुनने वाला नहीं, सब दबाव बनाने वाले हैं।
अरे दबाव ना बनाना भाई, चल
कोई नहीं है, सब गुरु बेकार है। सब चाहते हैं आप लोग हमसे कि अच्छा कार्य करें। आप बताइए इसको कहा करके हम बढ़ेंगे, अभी अच्छा कार्य करेंगे।
Well, I think this story highlights many aspects, including, the living and working conditions of those who work in the lowest hierarchies of the police force. Now, this is a constable, and most of these constables, especially those who are not from the same district, they live in these police lines. Those are sprawling campuses, as we all know. But sometimes the quality of life and the quality of food that is being served does come under the scanner. Now, in this case, this constable video has gone viral, and like you said, and like you can hear in that viral video, he is saying that the food that is being given to the constables is not even fit for animals. That even animals and dogs can't eat the food. If you throw a roti to a dog, he will also not eat it. So I think it's something that needs to be investigated. Now, the police are saying they have their own version. And by the police, I mean the official police handle of the Firozabad police. They are saying that the constable's complaint is being investigated, but also that he has a history of disciplinary issues, and he's been, cautioned, warned multiple times in the past. So that's also something that they have put out. So one waits to see what the outcome of that inquiry is. But at the same time, one also hopes that, those who work such punishing hours, especially in the police force, everyone does, but the lowest hierarchies of the police force, they really have a very tough job. So one hopes that their living conditions can be bettered, and action will be taken by the local police force also.
Right, and not just action against this poor constable, but genuine action to improve the situation. Because Alok, already in the video you can see one senior officer or a senior, ranking policeman there, trying to kind of shut him down or saying something to him, and then he goes on to say, but no, you're putting pressure on me already, and this is what happens every time.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right, which is why a fair and transparent inquiry is something that one hopes will happen. Whether it will or not, I think, remains to be seen, but one has to give the police some time to investigate, and one waits to see what the outcome is.
Moving on, possibility of assembly polls in Jammu and Kashmir this year looks bleak as the Election Commission of India has extended the deadline for revision of the electoral rolls. The deadline has now been extended from October to the 25th of November, close to the onset of winter when holding elections becomes difficult in Kashmir. J&K has been without an elected government since June of 2018, where the BJP dumped the PDP and leading the collapse of the Mehbooba Mufti's government.
No assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir this year. The Election Commission's decision to revise and extend the date of publishing final electoral rolls to the last week of November has further delayed chances of holding elections in Jammu and Kashmir after it was stripped of its statehood and special status. The erstwhile state is without an elected government since June 2018. Regional parties say there is a consistent effort over the last 4 years to deny people the right to elect their own government.
We are now in the 5th year when J&K will not have an elected representative, an elected chief minister at place. It's unfortunate that the process that was set in place some months back has again been curtailed.
As far as the democracy is concerned, it continues to be in suspended animation in Jammu and Kashmir. Elections are one of the tools of restoring democracy, and even that tool has not been restored in Jammu and Kashmir.
The revision of electoral rolls was announced in June following the completion of a controversial delimitation exercise to redraw assembly seats in Jammu and Kashmir. The final electoral rolls were supposed to be completed by October, giving hopes of holding assembly elections. The BJP says it's ready for the polls, but it is the prerogative of the Election Commission of India to hold elections.
Announcing the dates of the election is the exclusive prerogative of the Election Commission of India. This is the constitutional scheme of things in India. As and when Election Commission of India announces, Bharatiya Janata Party is ready, and we are ready. Even elections are announced tomorrow.
Jammu and Kashmir is under second longest period of center rule. Since June 2018, there is no elected government in the region. After ECI decision to revise the schedule for revision of electoral rolls, the wait for restoration of democracy is only getting longer. In Srinagar, Nazir Masoodi, NDTV.
And it's flag over food in Haryana. Ration card holders are being forced to buy the national flag by shopkeepers or denied a share of grain, and that's what people are being forced to pay 20 rupees to buy the national flag.
Flag over food. That's the message that people in this neighborhood of Haryana's district got from their local ration shop. Several below poverty line families like Santro, a widow in Hemda village, say they were forced to buy the tricolour only after which they got their government ration, which is legally theirs.
राशन लेने गई थी जी, राशन तो दे देता हूँ ना, नहीं बोले भाई उसका झंडा लिया मिलेगा, मैं पीछे नहीं जी मेरे पास, नहीं फिर राशन पहला पैसे लिया फिर मिलेगा राशन, आधार कार्ड दरवा रहे थे मैं राशन कार्ड, फिर मैंने दूसरी से लिया 20 रुपये फिर दिया जी ने।
कितने रुपए का झंडा लगाते हो?
20 रुपये का।
The person in charge of the ration shops says he was only following a government order on the Har Ghar Tiranga program.
ये तो ऊपर सरकार करेगी जो करेगी, हम तो कुछ जो हमारे पास देश होगा हम तो करनी है। लगता है गलत है लेकिन सरकार पैसे खा रही है इसका। वो तो सरकार की मर्जी है, तो आपने भी पता ही चलेगा जो हमारे पास देश होगा हम तो वो करेंगे।
The BJP state government in Haryana faced a backlash after a BJP MP, Varun Gandhi, posted this local news report showing a person who said his rations worth 20 rupees had been held back as payment for a flag.
कुछ राशन प्राप्तकर्ताओं को जबरदस्ती यह तिरंगा बेचा जा रहा था, जिसके खिलाफ प्रशासन द्वारा सख्त कार्रवाई अमल में लेके आई गई और डीएफएससी साहब द्वारा उस डिपो धारक के अगेंस्ट में उसका जो पीडीएस शॉप्स का जो लाइसेंस था उसको इमीडिएटली सस्पेंड भी कर दिया गया।
But the villagers blame the senior government official for passing such orders and say that ration shop in charge has been made the scapegoat.
This is not an isolated incident. A similar complaint was received from Faridabad district of Haryana. Forcing people to buy national flag is against the spirit of freedom, the 75th year of which will be celebrated on August 15. In Karnal, with Sunil Ravish, Mohammad Ghazali for NDTV.
And ahead of Independence Day this year, Har Ghar Tiranga campaign, BJP organized a Tiranga rally in the Tapi River in Gujarat, and there you can see boats in the Tapi River swaying to the tricolour. And moving on, in Assam, more than 53 lakh national flags valued at over 16 crores have been sold in Assam so far as the state government gears up for the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign, while 33 lakh tricolours prepared and sold by the members working under the Assam State Rural Livelihood Mission. Another 20 lakh have been sold through 34,000 fair price shops across the state in a week's time, and the Chief Minister, Himanta Biswa Sarma, has started his reach out where he will be gifting national flags. NDTV's Jagdeep Dhankhar reports.
As a part of the Har Ghar Tiranga initiative, here you can see Assam Chief Minister reaching a locality in Guwahati, handing over the national flag to the residents here. This is part of his initiative to reach out to people, to distribute national flag as a part of the state government's initiative to make sure that more people are involved in the Har Ghar Tiranga initiative of the central government, which has been supported by each and every state government. In Assam, the plan is to hoist at least 80 lakh national flags, 80 lakh tirangas, and therefore the focus at this moment is in terms of not only getting those flags made but also reaching out to people. Now, out of those 80 lakh flags, in fact 50 lakh flags would be procured from the Central Textile Ministry. This is what the state government has told us, and the rest 30 lakhs flags would be actually made by the self-help groups in the state. In fact, about 30 lakhs flags are already ready in the state, and flags worth over 16 crores have already been sold in the state. You have come today for the Har Ghar Tiranga initiative. What is the state government's plan?
As you see, that I am trying to meet our senior generation and trying to give them a national flag. But I know it is not possible to visit everyone, but I'll try to visit at least few houses in Guwahati today, tomorrow and day after. Idea is to create a awareness about the program. But in Assam, I am very happy to say that almost 50 lakhs flag has already been procured by the people. So it is going to be a big success here in Assam.
More than 16 crore rupees has been also collected.
It is not about the rupees, but if you see that in a state like Assam, if 50 lakhs people has already procured, and I am sure that this number will increase further, national flag and whole lot of Tiranga Jatra is happening across the state. I think this is a very, very big news for us, particularly looking at the backdrop, looking at the agitation, looking at the insurgency. This kind of euphoria around nationalistic movement, I think it is a big news for Assam, and it will be a historic days from 13th to 15th.
Here you can see the Chief Minister himself has handed over the national flag to the residents in a locality in Guwahati. In Guwahati, Ratnadeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
Moving on, in other news, airlines will be free to decide what to charge passengers from the 31st of August. The government has announced the removal of price bans imposed on domestic airlines in 2020 during the pandemic, lifting restrictions on ticket prices. The airlines have been reporting large losses, but some have said that with no restrictions on fares now, both upper and lower limits have been removed, and they may discount tickets to ensure that the volume of passengers increases. This could mean good news, as domestic airlines the airfares for those might just drop.
flights are going to get much cheaper. Remember, airfares in our country over the last couple of weeks have really shot up in the domestic and the international sector. This essentially concerns the domestic sector. When COVID took place, the government had a price ban which was actually put in place, and that price ban was to essentially protect all of the domestic airlines because aviation in our country was very heavily stressed. So with that price ban, you couldn't actually charge a ticket less than a certain amount, and the number of destinations you could fly to were also restricted. That restriction on destinations went a couple of months back, and now this is a sign of a free market system where the government has said, look, there are no price bans. This is likely to mean, in fact it certainly will mean, that there will be a battle between airlines to lower their prices. That's great news for consumers. Yes, an airline can also say, no, I want to increase my prices. But given the fact that it's quite likely that one airline or two airlines would bring down prices, all would likely follow suit. Now, the Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia has also spoken about this. He says this is the right time. Domestic aviation is going to grow, and they've taken a calculated decision, one that encourages that process of growth.
Now, the group of 7 industrialized nations condemned Russia's occupation of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and called on Moscow to immediately hand back full control of the plant to Ukraine. Ukrainian staff operating the plant must be able to carry out the duties without threats or pressure. It is Russia's continued control of the plant that endangers the region, is what the G7 foreign ministers have said in a statement. And moving on to more international news, a small Southern California wildfire burning in dry brush. This is sending smoke and flames swirling in a tornado-like pattern. The fire near Los Angeles. The Los Angeles County Fire Department was fighting the blaze from both the ground as well as air. The department tweeted that the crews were making good progress on the fire and that no structure had been threatened. And wildfires tore through the Gironde. This is a region of the southwestern part of France, destroying homes and forcing the evacuation of over 10,000 residents, some of whom had, in fact, moved on to rooftops as the flames got closer. Fires, which have been raised about 6,200 hectares, have now crossed into the neighboring areas of Lens region. A water company in the southern part of England was handing out water bottles to local residents due to what it said was a technical issue at the local reservoir. The scenes in the village of the North End, comes as much of the UK along with much of the rest of Europe is experiencing a heat wave with temperatures crossing almost 36 degrees. A car swallowed by a sinkhole in Texas. A large sinkhole opened in a street in El Paso, Texas, and swallowed a car. Officials say a water-main break spewed water and caused a portion of the street to collapse. A woman was rescued from the car before it sank in the water. And fuel fears in Hungary as Russia pipeline halted. The Hungarian state oil company and main supplier of the country's petrol stations had appealed to the public, asking customers to reduce their petrol purchases. Fears of a shortage in the petrol supply appeared after Russian state pipeline operator Transneft said that it halted shipments throughout. This is through the southern branch of the oil pipeline, which flows through Ukraine to the Czech Republic, Slovakia and Hungary. Transneft has cited complications due to the European Union sanctions for its actions on the 4th of August, saying its payment to the company's Ukrainian counterpart was refused. And former President Donald Trump invoked his Fifth Amendment protection against a self-incrimination as he testified under oath on Wednesday in New York Attorney General's long-running civil investigation into his business dealings. Wednesday's events unfolded 2 days after FBI agents searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida as part of an unrelated federal probe into whether he took classified records when he left the White House. Police in Rio de Janeiro on Wednesday were seeking the arrest of 6 people accused of involvement in stealing 16 artworks together valued at more than $700 million. This is $139 million US, some of which were recovered. The police said in a statement that the group stole the works from an 82-year-old widow who had been married to an art collector and dealer. This is museum quality pieces from Brazilian masters, Tarsilo do Amaral as well as Emiliano di Cavalcanti. And with that, in fact, let's get you more on the other side of this very short break. Finally, Raksha Bandhan is being celebrated today. It's an opportunity to embrace sibling love, and here is a glimpse of how India is celebrating Raksha Bandhan. And there you can see the soldiers getting Rakhi tied at the Wagah border. Raksha Bandhan being celebrated at the Wagah border, and you can see school children tying Rakhi to the soldiers at the Wagah border. And these are visuals coming in from Dehradun of Raksha Bandhan ceremony taking place. And that was a very short break. News and updates will continue on the other side.